Hey guys, what's going on? It's the NRL Fanatic coming at you with Supercoach, round number 9. One of the pinnacle rounds of the season. I think this is a bit of a clutch round. And because I've never asked for this in a prior video, especially at the start of the video, if you could please hit that like button down below and hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying the content. We've been doing it out for 9 weeks in a row, and I'm happy to be back, happy to be doing it. It's good stuff. I'm appreciating all the comments you guys are flicking through, all the questions, all the comparisons, and just all the love and support. It's been absolutely amazing. We're almost at the half season mark. We're not quite there yet. But in saying that, I feel like this round that we've come up to, round 9, is a very clutch round, because it's that time of the year when we're starting to roll into quite a number of injuries, quite a number of new guns being formulated or being found in the paddock, potentially because of other injuries or because they've been moved around positions, or maybe they're just gelling well with the team. Other considerations are for Origin coming up. Round 13, the buys. What are you going to be doing in order to kind of move yourself up as quickly as possible in that buy period? It's probably one of the most interesting buy periods that we've had, because of the combination of teams that we've got aren't the most populated teams for players to choose from. We'll talk about that a bit later in the video. We'll also talk about players that I've specifically pulled out of this pool, or that I'm recommending, or I'm putting out as a bit of a proxy for you guys to consider. How I've gone about that as well. The moves that we made last week, did they pay off? Are people still considering not bringing in Nathan Cleary and pushing out the season with other positional players or different captain's choices? How are those panning out for those coaches and the like? So to kick off, let's just have a quick review of the team now. This team that you're seeing right now is with the changes I've already made. I hate making changes and then reversing them, because if I forget to put them in, I'm screwed for the Thursday, Friday kickoff, and it's too late. But I'll walk you through how we went. I didn't have Randall as a reserve, but I had Harry Grant absolutely killing it. Storm, as you know, brilliant, in a class of their own for the last 2 weeks. We spoke about bringing in Grant 2 weeks ago, and there were a lot of comparisons between Damien Cook, because Damien Cook just rolled off a hat-trick. But I think it's a bit obvious that Harry Grant is the hooker to have in the league. Joshua King, Leo Thompson. I had Haas. Thompson was on the bench. Haas is now injured this week, so I've brought in Thompson over Max King, which is quite of an interesting move for those coaches looking into next week. They have a similar combination to myself. Thompson's moved to lock. We expect him to get 50, 60 minutes. I think with his rugby union background, it's illustrated in a lot of ways that he has quite a bit of a running game, an offload game in his repertoire. So I'm expecting him to score substantially more than he has in the prior weeks, or since the start of the season. So I'm putting that out there. Look, most people will probably say, look, Max King will probably outscore Thompson. I'm trying to find a player of difference, and I don't know if many people have caught on to the fact that Thompson's coming into the starting role, especially the predominant in the middle 13. So we'll see how that plays out. If I wanted to be more consistent, I'll probably play with the Max King. We'll see how that works. We've got Tabuai-Fidow, who absolutely killed it for us this week. Firstly, brought him in. Now, I spoke last week, and my trades were Curran to Tabuai-Fidow. What ended up happening was the 1 hour team sheet for the Titans game came out, and it moved David Fifita from starting second row into the bench. And I said, absolutely no way. I think Holbrook and friends are playing games. So I decided to move on with Fifita, and I'm lucky that I did, because Fifita ended up scoring a 25 and he got injured. Even without the injury, the fact that they're playing musical chairs in that team at the moment with their marquee player isn't really a good sign. I much prefer to be playing or picking players, especially the higher upper class players that cost me a lot of dollars, to be starting, because if they come off the bench and they get injured and they've only started at the 30-minute mark, and they get injured after 20 minutes, and they've only played 20, whereas if they got injured at the 50th minute mark, then at least they've played 50 minutes, and we can kind of resolve that. But that wasn't the case. I know that's a little bit of different thinking, but generally, players that start will always play more minutes than those who don't. So We got a little bit lucky there. But I think that's kind of a point to make in this video as well, is that, beware of what the team lists are doing, how teams are rotating players out. Now, I know we all live busy lives, we can't always do it. It's a bit of a being at the right time at the right place whenever you're looking at the teams to make sure you can catch on. Yeah, but, yeah, Tom Waller went well. I can... Classy, kick out, Tago. Tuilagi did well. He was unfortunate to get that try denied. Cleary killed it. Moses was massively disappointing for me. He scored the big 8. I couldn't believe it. It's the first time I think I've seen a fantasy score of 22, because I'm doing fantasy as well, outscore a Supercoach, and that's because in fantasy it counted all these kick meters. Here, he got 8. How does a guy who plays in the halves only get 8? Like, I know they got thrashed, but, that's such a sublime score for any starting player. It's so bizarre. Jack Wighton did really well. I didn't have Munster. I had Wighton and Ilias. I've decided to move Ilias on for Munster purely because Ilias played with 12 men, or against 12 men in the Manly team for 70 minutes and still only scored 30 points. Really? Like, if you're an attacking half, you should absolutely be carving up, setting up, executing, running the ball, all those good things. I don't know. He's just a former shadow of the man he's replaced in Reynolds. Complete shadow, I would say, and just didn't get the job done. But Moses, look, one thing I think the first thing you're probably going to ask me is, will I trade him on because his break even's 130? He's got a bit of a tough gig this week as well against the Panthers. Absolutely not. Look, I'm holding Moses for the long run. He won't play Origin. Cleary will, and I just think there's a lot of upside. Look, there's no more upside in Moses now. He's definitely going to lose money in the next week. But I think as a player of difference or a pod, I think he's good to still have on my roster. Stags did well. May did okay. Wasn't great. Penasini, Swali killed it. He could have got another try at the end there. Would have been a great score. Pap and Taff also did well. So overall, really happy with my team. We've gone up to 8,851st. We scored in the top 6%. Good recovery from the prior week where we dropped from, the prior fortnight where we dropped from like 1,000th to 11,000th or something. So we're slowly climbing back up. Unfortunately, I would have gone up a lot more had Moses done well, or just even got a mediocre score of like 30, 40, but it is what it is. We're going to take those results as they come in. This week's super important, I believe, because, we've been building up this segment for a little bit, but we're about to head into the pointy end of the season where Origin kicks off, Rep Footy kicks off, players, your best of the best players are going to start missing. They may not only miss the Origin round, they could also miss the following round if they need to be rested. We've seen it happen many a times. It depends how the rosters or how the draw looks. And I was just having a look at some of the key players in round 14, Cowboys, Dragons, Titans, Rabbitohs. So if you had an Origin player that played on the Wednesday, there's a chance that these 6 teams could rest a player depending upon how full on that game was. Saturday, you're probably safe. Friday, possibly not. Can't see many rep players for the Dragons or Cowboys or many popular choices for those players out there anyway. But it's just something to consider that sometimes in rep footy, you're definitely going to miss the prior round if you're chosen. You may miss the following round as well. Also, Origin games are usually a lot more physical than, the run meters, the hit ups, all that stuff is more than a typical club game. Injuries, etc., probably more prone as well. So, something to keep a bit of an eye out for. But what I've done, I've evaluated how am I going to best catch a lot of the other coaches off guard with the round 13 and trying to have as many players as I can possibly playing, line them up now in order to best address that situation. And I don't have all that many, to be honest. We did a count last week. I got Maxi King, Euan, Aitken, kick out, Tomalolo, Tago, Curran, if he's back. I'm still holding on to Curran. Last we heard, it's 2 to 6 weeks. I'm hoping he's back the following week. Hopefully he's back for Origin. Not really sure. May have to trade him pending more news. I'm holding on to Jack Wighton. Super unfortunate that he's not playing this week. I would have loved to have had him because they're playing the Bulldogs. Jack Wighton, I think, would have loved to have played the Bulldogs, but he's got a 2-week match ban. May, Sawali, Koula, and Schiller, who most likely won't be playing anyway because he just hasn't been getting the game time. And it looks like Croker's back irregardless. But what have I done? I've done a bit of... Look, this is how I recommend all coaches do their research. I always say do DYOR, always do your own research. That's what it stands for. So just grabbing the 8 teams that are playing around 13 and then going into my players, clicking all those teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got all 8 teams. Who are the players that I can possibly pick up now that are probably undercosted, or I think they're going to be a gun long-term anyway, that we can like slide into our squad that will reap the benefit of having them for round 13 and not just making knee-jerk reactions at the base of round 13. So there's many ways you can do this. Looking at the average is probably a good idea. Just evaluating down the list. Is there anyone that you may have missed? I may have missed. We can do that quickly now. You can sit here for hours and look at this stuff. But Nathan Cleary, obviously playing Origin, he's out. Scott Drinkwater is probably the most obvious one. He's the 3rd most traded in player this week so far, and we've only had Team List Tuesday for 7 hours, so he's going to be hot popular favourite. He's averaging 88. He's killing it since he's back. He seems to have cemented that spot at the fullback. I was really keen on him, but I've backflipped, and we'll get to that very shortly. But other players, Taylor May, Cherry Evans. Cherry Evans will play for Queensland. Homoli, Fifita, who's out. Manu. Again, Manu, another principle that I always tick off is centers don't always get the points you want. He got 27, just like Talatau, who got, I think, 30 or 40. Always risky business paying big dollar for your centers. I always try to leave them last. I try and get every other position bolstered up than my centers because you're just going to have results like that. Yo, who will play Origin. Tedesco. Tomalolo is probably the most obvious one. Front row forward is a very difficult position this season to fill consistently with high scorers, just because they're not generally 80-minute players in the prop position. I mean, you've got Papali's playing second row, who's an obvious choice, but expensive. And Josh King. Tino's also there, but there's no one who really stands out other than Papali. Haas is good, but look, he's just getting injured or suspended. Very touch and go with that guy at the moment. Tommy Travojevic will play. Kickow, Euan Aitken. Sammy, who won't be playing. Curran, Dearden, Pengai, Cotter. Satili is actually not bad. If you're looking to fill in a second row position with someone who probably has some upside there. Roosters haven't been doing all that well, yet he still seems to be scoring in that 60 mark. He's the 80-minute player for them. If you're looking at all the games the Roosters have played this year, he's played 80 minutes for each game bar one. So he seems to have cemented the 80-minute second row player at the moment, whereas Angus Crichton hasn't, which is a bit of a reversal from prior seasons. To Payne, Tago, Martin, Crichton. Look, we could go down this list, but if you're looking at this the same way I'm looking at this, is that there isn't a lot of guns associated with the round 13 bye. And it becomes a bit of a cross-section for us is, do we risk and jeopardize our current team by bringing in potential mediocre or mid-tier players to hopefully score well for round 13 and try and leapfrog a few coaches that way? Or do we just stack guns and acknowledge that the current run rate that they'll score, that it will, over the long term, outscore, even if they outscore mediocre players who would be playing around 13. And so if I look at that in a very simple way, let's say if I'm comparing player A, Nathan Cleary, to Drinkwater, let's say Cleary won't be playing around 13, Drinkwater will. If Cleary scores around 9, we've got 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, so we've got 5 rounds. Cleary scores 80 points on average, and Drinkwater scores, let's just say, 60 points on average. The difference between the two is 20 points. So if Drinkwater plays one more game for those 5 rounds, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, that will mean he'll get that extra 60-point score that Nathan Cleary wouldn't have. But Cleary's differential score between Cleary to Drinkwater in the 4 rounds before that is 20 points, because 80 to 60, that's 80 points. Minus what Drinkwater would score in the extra round he'd play, 60. So overall, you still scored better with someone like Nathan Cleary by 20 points. So I guess the point I'm trying to put to you out there, and you can put that in Excel. I'm sure most of you are very good at mathematics either way, arithmetic, could work that out as look, at the end of the day, you always want the higher point scorer who averages better across the season than filling a 1-week gap. For that very reason, it just doesn't make sense to drag your team down and try and overcompensate by trying to catch a few coaches out. What I would say is, if there are players like a Tomalolo who you think are going to be guns, in my case I do, bring them in. You're not jeopardizing your squad. Still going to be scoring well. He scored 69. His average before that was 63, I think, or 62. So, if anything, I benefit from doing that. But I wouldn't be bringing in just anyone for the sake of covering that one extra week. In my opinion, not worth it. If in the case that the Panthers, let's use Nathan Cleary as an example, if the Panthers were playing on the Friday following Origin, that meant Nathan would most likely miss 2 games, and then, the Origin round after that, potentially the one after that as well. I'd consider it, but in this case, he isn't. Panthers play on Sunday, which means it's a good turnaround for that squad to have a full squad following the Origin round. So, a lot of different ways to skin the cat or cut the cat. How do they say it? Skin the cat, whatever. But I think, at least that's my train of thinking, is that you don't really want to pull your team down too much. And I'm lucky because I've already got kick out. I've got Aitken. These are players that other people have, 17.4, 16.9. I expect those numbers in population or pick team percentages will go up just due to people wanting to bring them in for coverage. Josh Curran, still 3.4, very low because who knows what's going on with his knee. Look, the other thing to consider is, do you have players who you'd otherwise look at trading out who have kind of peaked in value? Tago is a great example, and Taylor May is a great example of that. So, Taylor May, if we go back to my squad here, and we look at the break-evens, Tago, break-even 71, so he's peaked, right? He's not going to go up in value. May, 74. Both of these players have peaked. Both are playing in positions that I don't expect them to regularly score above that. So a consideration now for most coaches out there would be, do I trade out these guys, upgrade them to better scoring players on average, whomever you may think that is, or do I hold on to them? I don't think there's a lot of consideration of, do I hold on to them for that extra round? For me, because they're scoring okay or well, now you're going to say, well, actually Taylor May's 75.5 average. He scored 39. I'm expecting him to score 40 points a round. I'm expecting him to be a realistic winger center who's not going to be hosing teams down week in, week out. So I expect them to go down in value. However, they score well enough for me to keep them in the squad, kind of jeopardize, maybe 5 or 6 points going to potentially someone who's a bit more of a better gun for now, because I know they're going to play round 13. As soon as round 13 gets played, I'll have to evaluate the squad then. Are there other guns in those positions, specifically the second row position, who I can bring in that's going to be across the board a much better player for the end run? So I'm leaving Tago and May in there because I want to have some sort of origin cover. And same as Max King. Max King, Break even is 36. He will most likely have peaked next week. I'm going to be holding these players just for the simple fact that they will play that round 13. Hopefully, there'll be a lot of coaches who trade these guys out. A lot of these guys, coaches started with them. If coaches get greedy and want to... Excuse me, my nose just got a little bit itchy. But if coaches want to trade them out, that would be amazing news for us. Simply because we may have a point of difference come the Origin round. You know, more players playing. But the reality is, you've looked at the same squad I've looked at in terms of who's playing round 13. I don't think there's going to be all that many players, all that many coaches out there, that are going to have, 10 players playing Origin. And for you to make all those trades now is insane. Just to have 1 week, because in 4 weeks' time, the following, rep rounds as well, you're going to get caught out because you're not going to be able to trade, your 17 players that are covering Origin back to covering Origin again because of, the buys rotate on those weeks. So what I'd say is make trades that make sense to you. Consider, as a second or third priority, what does that mean for my upcoming buy rounds? But don't make it your be-all and end-all. That's going to bring me to Scott Drinkwater. Scott Drinkwater has been playing the house down, averaging 88, 113. Coach is extremely happy with him. Was even questioned the post-conference, what do? You got Hammer, you've got Drinkwater. He's like, well, we can't push Drinkwater out because he's doing the job for us, right? Which means he seems to have cemented his spot, which is good for anyone that's holding him out there. Now, he's only owned in 2.8% teams right now. A lot of people are bringing him in. Break even, I believe, from memory is -20. Definitely going to go up in value. Similar story to what we've been saying with players like Talatau and all that. Going to definitely go up in value. Whether you bring them in, question mark. Now, what did I do? I had a look at previous games, all the stats from Drinkwater when he played in the fullback position. Now, if you have a look here, his base stats, and this is going to be true for most fullbacks, are very minimal. 26, 20, 30 when we're looking at, and 25 against the Raiders. He scored 43 against the Raiders, which looks to be abnormal given that there was 94, 102, 113 scored in the other weeks. But the other weeks is Cowboys thrashed the Eels, right? Absolutely pumped them. Cowboys thrashed the Titans. Cowboys did well against it was a bit of, I think it was 25-24, high-scoring game. But in those games, Drinkwater scored tries, right? And when there's a lot of points being scored, generally your fullback is going to get involved, whether they're scoring themselves, having a try assist, whatever. A bit more of a reality was when he scored 43. And so I had him in, and I was bringing him in for Ilias, and I was like, okay, let's have a look at the prior year. So I had a look at the prior year, and these stats aren't that all reliable, purely because this is when he played halfback. We don't really want to be comparing when he played halfback. So I had to line up the fantasy stats, which we have on this page, when he played fullback. So he played fullback in round 1 and round 2 last year. Round 1 and round 2 of last year. He scored 42 and 34, right? Didn't play fullback for the rest part of the year, and hadn't played fullback. We go back to 2020. I don't think there's much point. What this will illustrate, although fantasy is not like Supercoach in a lot of ways, what this will illustrate is that, he scored 32.9 as a fullback. When he played halfback, 60 or 5, looking at 5'8", scored 43.1. So what that's telling you, because fantasy is more based on base stats as opposed to attacking stats, is that he'll generally score less at fullback than he will at halfback. And then you kind of compare that to these results here, if he's only doing this at the, half 5'8" role, he's not going to be scoring any better than that fullback long term. We've seen many players previously have these freak breakouts. You got to remember, Drinkwater came in relatively fresh into the games that he's played. Wouldn't have been injury prone, would have been aching to get out there. My point is that I don't think, similar to the Talatau when we were talking about him last week, people were like, oh, he'll score 100 again, he'll get 150 like he did against Manly and ended up scoring 40 against Stags, right? I don't believe we'll see another 100 game from Drinkwater this season. I think that's extremely abnormal. It can happen, but consistently, I don't think that's a reality. And so, what I did when I evaluated the trades I made this week, which was, and I've said this week in, week out, it's the two most difficult positions this season in Supercoach, your front row and your 5'8". If you get those wrong, you're in trouble. If you don't pay good money for those positions, I think you're in trouble as well. I looked at Munster's results, and the reality is Munster is by far the best 5'8" in the league. Now, I could have brought in a few other people. Dylan Brown is of obvious mention here. If we look here, Drinkwater is averaging better than Munster. I just don't think it's going to happen long term. Dylan Brown's available, Jackson Hastings, and then the rest are kind of like there and okay, but not doing brilliant. And that's why the 5'8" position is extremely difficult to pick up. I've decided to bring in Munster. Now, 33.8% coaches have done that. I'm kind of jumping on that bandwagon because similar to our discussion 2 to 3 weeks ago where we evaluated Harry Grant compared to most hookers in the competition, is that I expect Munster to score on average more than 20 points than the rest of the 5'8s out there consistently across the year. Dylan Brown, he's still scoring well even though he's played 2 games at centre. It's freakish. But for me, Munster is a game changer. I may change this last minute to Dylan Brown, but my team at the moment has made a lot of good money earlier on in the season, and I was looking to kind of fix up those positions. And although he will not be a pod by me picking Cameron Munster, the reality is I'm not risking my season on a Drinkwater who may end up getting a 30 next week. Munster, I'm expecting more than 50 each week, consistently. Over and over again. He's the guy in the team that they're all looking to. He's more of a halfback than a 5'8". Like, I know Jerome Hughes is the listed halfback, but if you think about playmakers and the guys controlling the teams, the guys getting the ball and making the plays, it's Munster as opposed, just like Moses is to Para, just like Cleary is to Penrith. A fullback, I'm just not convinced. Now, there will be a lot of people out there who disagree with me on this trade, who think that I should take the risk with Drinkwater. But because I'm ranked in 8,851st, and I'm not looking to claw up that many ranks, and I think that I can have a solid base for the rest of the season, and I'm also trying to minimize trades. We've got 26 trades left. That's a reality. But I just don't want to burn trades. I feel like bringing in Drinkwater after Origin round 13, I'd just be trading someone else in for that same role. So, opted not to go that way for that very reason. I've got the money to do it. The other trade that I made this week was bringing in Tass, no brainer. Well, the break-in was something ridiculous. Negative 69. Ironically, I think with Tass, it's just easy money. You're not bringing him in to play for your squad. Now, you may do that. He is averaging 63. The 84 was helped by the fact that Manly were down a player and the centers ended up getting across the line quite a bit. But I'm overly not convinced by Tass just yet at this point. In order for me to play him, I have to see a lot more games, how he'd go across against a good, defensive centers like Stags, like your Gaggais, etc. So, that's the trades that I made this week, and that's what I've evaluated from the round 13, the bye week. It's a difficult season because I know what you're probably saying out to yourself is that if you're ranked 5,000th to 10,000th and to 50,000th, how do we jump ahead of all these other teams? We've got to make some desperado trades. I'm totally against that. We're only the ninth round in. Yeah, we still have 24, 25 weeks to play for the rest of the season. We're not even halfway. I think the point is, if you've been making solid trades, or you've been saving trades that you can have at the back end of the season, you will naturally leapfrog coaches out there. And if we can make the right choices now, we'll be in a good spot. So last but not least, I hope that kind of answered a lot of different questions out there, of questions you may have had, trades you may have been considering. But that's kind of like my thinking. Looking at the most trades already, Talamai's out, Tass is in. Okay, again, going back to the May argument of will he be an Origin viable player? One thing that may turn off a few people is that Brian To'o's named on the extended squad. Will he come in for Charlie Staines or will he come in for May? That we don't know. My trades this week may change pending who To'o comes in for. To'o may play Origin, question mark, which means May will probably most likely play round 13 anyway, but I don't really want 500 grand for a winger spot chilling there for too long, so I may be trading that out. Lachlan Ilias, I think, is a trade out every time of the day, purely because, you know, we discussed earlier in the video, 70 minutes with down a man still scoring 30. Penasini, the trade out, I don't like that one. I think Penasini's been solid. Fifita, I can understand. Appy, I can also understand. Haas, I think people are over the fact that he's injured, but he's going to be back next week. Schiller, yeah, look, I can get behind that one as well. Isaiah Papali, Tomalolo. So it looks like a lot of people are jumping on the Tomalolo train. Which, you know, kind of sucks for us because we made a good move last week, and it's only because certain players are out. Are they bringing him in? So he may not be a pod in some ways. People are obviously chasing scores. Xavier Coates, 3,500 people brought him in. I'm just not convinced. Obviously, 2 huge scores because they thrash teams. It's not going to happen every week. Most likely we'll play Origin as well. Anyway. Some of these I can get behind. Cody Walker seems to have bottomed out at the 5'8" spot. Even though he made 50 grand this week, he was down 220, so he's down 270k. And again, that effort that he had this week was against 12 men. I'm a little bit skeptical. Martin, I can understand. Task. So people are just trying to cash out. You know, potentially bring in other good big players like your Murrays, like your Papulis to hold those, you know, consistent gun scores, which is good to see. Last but not least, did we talk about trade outs? Yeah, Mitchell Moe's been trade out, bad score, easy trade to Nathan Cleary. Can understand that. Kurt Mann's been finally traded out. Okay, fair play. If we go to rankings, let's have a look at the first place rank. See if there are many differences between our squad. Is he doing well? Is he doing bad? Obviously, he's doing extremely well if he's coming first, but he's brought in Pakes as a cash out. Pakes has been starting on the interchange. As you can see, he's scoring 20. That's always the huge concern, is that if he scores another 20, Pakes, and if we look at that now, let's have a look now. Pakes. Corey Pakes. Break even is -10, so he's still got money to make, but it's worrying because he's gonna have to make another trade. I think there were better cashes out there. Papali, Max King, Leo Thompson. See if he subs him in this week for Max King. Similar thing to myself. He's got Talakai, Golmatongi, Tomalolo. This guy's actually got quite a few different players of difference. He's also got players that just aren't playing at all. Lomax, another player of difference compared to most squads. Although he's picked up at 15.7% of squads. It's interesting. Suwali, May, Hines. Hines, I think for me, guys, I'm going to be honest. Hines is probably going to be the reason why I do extremely well or extremely poorly. Given that 47.6% of you own him out there and I don't, means that the fact that he's the second highest fantasy Supercoach scorer, is that correct still? I think that is. Average total points. Second. Because he's the second highest scorer and I don't have him, 50% of you, let's round it up to 50% of you do, means 1 out of 2 teams are benefiting when I'm not benefiting. That really hurts. But it is what it is. Yeah, so interesting looking at that team as well. But look, that's going to wrap up this week. Hopefully you've been able to make some thoughts or different channels of consideration for your team when it comes to bringing in the players. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you bringing in Drinkwater? Are you not? You know, I think I don't want to be sitting here in 3 weeks and he's absolutely killing it and then being like, well, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Can happen. Cannot happen. See how Monster runs. Maybe I'll go to Dylan Brown last minute. Maybe I'll go to Drinkwater last minute. But I think I'm pretty happy with Monster. Other than that, guys, have a good week. Enjoy. And make sure you get your trades in on time and absolutely kill it. See ya.